Ramana often said that we just have to remove our thoughts, reduce our thoughts, remove our thoughts. Okay. But specifically the egoic thoughts, the thoughts that are predicated on the idea, I am the body mind. So purification is to reduce egoic striving, egoic grasping, egoic desire. Yeah, that we can call purification. It's calming the mind down, because pretty much everything we're thinking about is so I can get something. This addresses Masamo's point. You see, Massimo said that liberation is not something you can gain, because it's not an object. Objects come and go. It's not a subtle object or a gross object. But the ego is always trying to grasp things. It's trying to grasp experiences and knowledge in particular. It's trying to get more understanding and more experience. So, calming the mind down, being calm, generating peace. This is called purification, or it's called generating peace, or it's called meditation. It's the basic practice. Someone in the chat, I can't remember who it was, said that Ramana said meditation is for beginners. It's correct. It's the basic practice. It means it's the fundamental practice. It means it's for beginners. It calms you down. How do you purify the mind? There are many, many ways. There are as many ways as there are people. But it all comes down to making the mind, the egoic mind, still, quiet, peaceful. This stops the mind grasping for experiences, for knowledge, reading, watching videos, all this kind of stuff, trying to get more and more information about enlightenment, yeah? Grasping. No, be still. Trying to get an experience, whatever experience it is, you're trying to get this experience, that. No, just don't worry about that stuff. This is purifying the mind, becoming less egoic. The exact ways we do that, we can talk about that if we want. There are loads and loads of ways you can do that. Purification attacks the grasping egoic mind. That's looking for something, knowledge, looking for experience. Self-inquiry was Vanessa's second part of the teaching, what I call insights or generating insight. Insight teachings, wisdom teachings. This attacks what Walter was saying. Walter was saying the reason there is no entity here. That's the fundamental teaching. There's no entity here. There's no one here to gain anything. What's there to gain? This is all just a spontaneous happening. That insight, when you realize that you don't need to gain a special state of no mind or anything like that, actually, there's already no one here. We can call that insight. You see? The idea, I am a separate entity with free will, choice, which is what Walter said, that is a fiction. That me is a fiction. Seeing through that me, we can call that insight. What is the way it's insight? Vanessa said, self-inquiry. Self-inquiry means, who am I? Asking the question, who am I? What am I? When you ask the question, who am I? Or what am I? You look, you inquire, you investigate. There's nothing here. There's no entity here. There's no me. So these are the two wings of the teaching. Now, I want to make these wing things here, yeah? Every now and again, I will say, I don't mind looking silly and looking stupid by doing this kind of strange bird-like impression here. If it, no one join me, don't worry. None of you join me and make me feel more at home here. Just allow me to do this by myself, please. Because I want you to remember the teachings. There are two wings of the teaching. What happens if you've got one wing? You don't fly very well. So you need two wings of the teaching. Yeah? And then you're going to soar like an eagle. The eagle of liberation. Right? Yes, I am making this up as I go along. In case you think this is too polished to be made up on the spot, this is all spontaneous discourse, guys. So you've got the two wings of teaching. One is to be still. The other one, see there's no one here. Actually, either one of these, they both work together. That's why they're wings of the teacher. You need them both. If your mind's all over the place, very busy, very egoic, very caught up, very unlikely it will have any insight that there's no one here. That's why the foundational practice is to be still through whichever means. That's why that's the beginner practice. Now, meditation is bondage. Ashtavakra Gita says that. It's true, it does. Why does it say that? Well, stilling the mind, calming the mind is a relative thing. It's like learning to walk. It's like learning to drive. It's like learning to be a better communicator. By itself, it's not liberating. You see? But it's helpful. There are various things that are helpful. Stilling the mind is the most important one. In fact, it all comes down to making the mind stiller, purer, calmer. And then insight actually comes by itself spontaneously. We don't even need the insight teachings if our mind is calm and still, because the insight spontaneously arises. Wisdom spontaneously arises. But if you've got the wisdom teachings as well, that will drive that point home. If we have a wisdom teaching that says there's no one here, but without the purification, what happens? You get the insight, you realize there's no one here, you have the epiphany, maybe when you're at a meeting or reading the book. And then when you're not at the meeting, you're not reading the book, the me comes back again. Because the habitual tendency, the vasana, remember the word vasana means the habitual tendency. The habitual tendency to identify as a me is still there, habitually arising. And insight by itself is not enough for most people. It's not strong enough to root out that habitual tendency, although it can be for some people. Ramana used to say, if someone spontaneously attains insight without having any purification, and they become liberated just through insight alone. No, they didn't need to purify. They didn't spend weeks, months, years meditating, purifying. Ramana said you can take it in their previous lives. They have done all their purification. But the pure mind receives the wisdom teaching, done. Because the vasanas have been removed by the purification, to the most part. The insight to say, there's no one there. Oh yeah. And you're calm and you're free. If you have the wisdom teachings without purification, without stillness of mind, then you have episodic insight, which is actually superficial, and actually is a different form of suffering, because the insight comes and goes, and then it's frustrating, and that's a different form of suffering. If you have purification, stillness teachings by themselves, usually what happens is the mind just becomes stiller. And then again, when you go into the outside world again, or when you're away from your practice, your mind becomes egoic, because there's no insight that actually the real thing, the real heart of the teaching is what Walter said. There's no entity, separate entity here at all. So Ramana summarized this. He said the whole of the Vedanta teachings can be summarized in one or two biblical statements. And first of the biblical statements he said that the whole of the Vedanta teaching can be summarized in is, be still and know that I am God. It's a statement from the Old Testament. Be still and know that I am God. And here we have the complete teaching. We've got our two, yes, wings of the teaching. We have be still Any kind of stillness, silence, devotion, it's all purification. It's a relative thing. And then know that I am God. Know, when you hear about knowledge, that means it's insight, wisdom, knowledge. Insight, wisdom, knowledge are the same thing. You see, be still and know that I am God. I should mention, insight has to do with identity, your self-identity. So insight challenges the notion of what you think you are, your identity. Purification doesn't directly do that. Purification, you can think you're a body-mind entity, but now you're just practicing purification things. You're just getting a calm mind. But insight, it reveals what you think you are is not what you are. Ignorance is thinking you're the body-mind entity. The body-mind entity is a doer, thinks it has free will and choice. It's a doer, a thinker. That's the illusion. That's the knowledge. In the Bible, or the biblical statement that Ramana quoted, it's be still and know that I am the body-mind. No. It didn't say be still and know I'm the body-mind. It said be still and know that I am God. Meaning, oneness, everything. No duality. And I think, if I remember correctly, the second biblical statement Ramana said was, I am that I am. I am that I am. God said, I am that I am. I think it was when Moses asked God, who are you? What are you? He was asking God, what are you? Who are you? And God said, I am that I am. I think I've got that right. I think they're the two phrases. If anyone, it's taken from, if anyone wants to look it up, it's from the book Talks with Sri Ramana Maharishi. You can look it up and just let me know if I've made a mistake there. I'm pretty sure that's correct. So everything I've just said is some theory. It's just theory, just concepts, just ideas. And as we go deeper and deeper into this teaching, this theory at once is very useful because it gives the mind, the ego mind, a guide. It gives the ego mind a roadmap. But even this becomes too much baggage to carry on the journey eventually. Yeah? We let go of everything eventually because it's too burdensome to carry this kind of conceptual teaching around. It's too heavy. It's suffering to carry these concepts and teachings around even. But they can guide us nonetheless at certain points in our journey. So the purified mind, the quiet mind, the loving mind, the peaceful mind gains lasting, stable wisdom. So it doesn't fluctuate. The rajasic mind, the passionate mind, the active mind doesn't assimilate the wisdom in a lasting way. It gets a bit of wisdom here and there, and then it goes. It's frustrating. So if that's you, you need to be still. And that can be difficult if you've been coming to non-dual meetings, non-duality type meetings, and when they say, there's no one here. And it's like, well, if there's no one here, who's there to be still? The problem is, you don't have that genuine realization that there's no one here, which is why you're suffering. If this is you, that is. So, while you take yourself to your body-mind, the instruction is to be still. Only when there's the lasting freedom can you genuinely say there's no one here. Otherwise, it's just conceptual, verbal statement and coexisting with ignorance and suffering. This is why devotion, love, peace, stillness of mind are incredibly important parts of the teaching. If you just have there's no one here, you're not like this. Trying to fly with one wing.